welcome everyone who just showed up. And now we're going to continue and we're going to have a briefing of what SWS has done since its creation on campus by Andrea.
Okay. I'll call you in like 3 minutes.
Andrea! Hi, so I'm Andrea Nichols. I'm a second-year grad student in the Rollins School of Public Health at Emory. I'm going to talk a little bit more just specifically about the events that have happened since last Wednesday, since I think most people here probably have a good grasp of what we've been doing for the past year and a half. So last Wednesday, we had a workers' rights rally framed around the purpose of having a meeting with President Wagner. We had come to President Wagner about in the first week of April, asking him for a meeting with us to discuss the termination of the Sodexo contract because of their human rights violations across the world, as well as their mistreatment of workers on the Emory campus. Last Wednesday, we showed up. We had a large group of people here. We had some very prominent speakers, including Dr. Martin Luther King's nephew, Isaac Ferris Jr., who was with the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. We also had Senator Vincent Fort of Georgia. President Wagner didn't show up. He sent his Vice President, Gary Hawk, down to read a letter that was already crafted by President Wagner that we had actually already received, which maintained their response that Sodexo will stay on campus because this is ultimately a battle between two large entities, Sodexo and a union, which is not what our purpose is as students. This has nothing to do with what we are trying to do as students, which is to address human rights issues, which is to address issues of inequality on our campus. And they're trying to really brush off this issue as something that has nothing to do with students, not a student issue, not a faculty issue, not an alumni issue, and it certainly is. We had a large appearing of alumni, faculty, students, and workers last Wednesday. So because President Wagner didn't show up, we went upstairs to his office, which his secretary locked. We then stayed in his hallway and said that we would stay there until he came and had a meeting with us. So we stayed there throughout the afternoon until they asked us to leave. We said we want a meeting with President Wagner. We want an open meeting with President Wagner so that media can be there, so that people can participate in the meeting, people can observe, people aside. We've had meetings throughout the past year and a half with President Wagner and members of his administration 9 times. This would have been the 10th meeting, but the difference is that we wanted it to be an open meeting. We wanted there to be a dialogue rather than just a one-sided statement, which he has been repetitively giving to us for the past year and a half. So he didn't show up. They finally decided to send up the police to remove us from the building. Before they had an opportunity to arrest us, we decided to leave the building. Even though we were peacefully protesting, we weren't doing any damage. We allowed the work duties on the 4th floor to continue to be done. We weren't disrupting anything. We were simply staying peacefully in the hallway. However, the administration of our school was willing to have us arrested, their own students. So we left. We decided we still wanted to have a strong presence here. So we decided to pitch a couple of tents right here on the quad in front of the administration building. A lot of us stayed over that first night. We didn't really know how long we would stay, but it turned into a beautiful, large tent city. And instead of dwindling in forces and kind of getting worn out by time, we continued to grow in breadth and in depth. We had a deepening commitment among the people who were here. We had a growing awareness across the campus among students, among prospective students, among the faculty members, among the workers on campus. People were starting to gain an awareness about what the issue actually is and why are these kids, are they just kids who are yelling, or do they actually really have a good reason to be here? So we were really able to make those connections with the campus in a real way for 6 days. So from Wednesday until Monday. So this continued to grow. Finally, yesterday we had the tent city was going on as usual. By the way, they never asked us to leave. They never had a problem with us setting up the tents in the first place. No one told us not to set up the tents. No one told us to take them down at any point throughout the 6 days that we were here. So yesterday, Monday, we were gathered here at about 6:30 p.m. When Vice President Gary Hawk came out and addressed us as a group. And he told us that we must leave in 5 minutes, take all of our things, and go, or else the facilities management team would take down our stuff for us. He left, and about 2 minutes later, he came back, and he said, "Okay, guys, go take down the tents." So they did. So the facilities management people started taking down the tents, our tents and Emory's tents, at the administration's command. And we tried to tell them, look, this is our property. We can take it down ourselves. They continued to take down our tents, take down our signs. They said there are no signs allowed. There are no tents allowed on this lawn. You're breaking a policy here. And we said, what is the policy that we're breaking? And he wasn't able to provide us with a real rule that we were actually breaking this entire time. So we tried to salvage as much as we could. We centered the tents in the middle all together as much as we could, the ones that they hadn't broken down already. And we decided we would stay here. They kept taking a lot of our stuff. They were loading them into the wagons of the facilities management. And meanwhile, a few of us were speaking on the loudspeaker, informing the observers on the quad what was going on. A lot of people started filtering in support of what was going on, and people who knew what was happening and people who were curious and just bystanders. So we continued to occupy 2 tents, and it finally got down to 1 tent. 7 of us decided that we would stay in a tent and until they forcibly removed us. So they called in the police, the Emory police, and we linked arms. We were singing songs, and they dragged us out of the tent one by one at the university's bidding. President Wagner and his administration were willing to arrest their own students for protesting for workers' rights, for advocating for a just employment policy on our campus, for having a company or having a food service here that doesn't abuse human rights. That's what we were here for. So he had the police bring us to the DeKalb County Jail. Last night, the 7 of us stayed over in the DeKalb County Jail. We're all going to have an opportunity to talk about our experiences in a minute, but it was quite a night. So here we are today to tell our stories to you. I'm going to have Roger talk a little bit more about the significance of all this.
Woo!